Hey everybody. Uh, it's sure raining out there. It's kind of let up over here. Let me style the video. So today is Tuesday, March 4th. Okay, and I'm going to share it to the internet, memories, live videos, tell everybody good morning. Okay. What? That's the camera I'm looking at. Yes, the reason late start is the lights kept going off at the house, and Peppo was screaming. The weather usually doesn't bother him, but when there's no electricity and everything's super quiet, my house has all kinds of noises when everything's going on. It's an older house. So he was screaming, so I stuck around, and finally the weather broke there. George is in, Brittany's in, and others. Aaron is in. Then I stopped at Dutch Brothers for a hot chocolate, and naturally the line was forever. In fact, I originally was going to stop at the one in Hazel, and all the power's off by the CVS, the Albertsons, everything's off out there. The Whataburger's out, CVS is out, Jack in the Box over on the other side of 199. The Dutch Brothers, Stop Fast Gas, or whatever it is out there. Monty's in. So, yeah. So we dealt with problems. This is storm season, so we're just getting started on storm season. But it happens every year. We're used to it. Things happen, but we have people to fix things. If your roof gets damaged or you think it does, you need to call K Ranch Roofing. In fact, I'm going to find it right there is their moniker. I was also reminded by the folks out at Yellow Snake Horses Brazos River Ranch that spring break's coming up, and it's a good place. Take a day off, and if you're not going away to somewhere where it's going to take 3 or 4 or 5 days, if you're just going to do different things in a short hop from Cowtown, go down there, call, and make an appointment, and y'all go horseback riding. She says 2 hours for $75. You can't beat that. Okay. The Cleburne group is Oh, they're still writing. That's going to be a while. You got 1.5 down in Granbury. Yeah, everyone, if you've got an issue or something, message me. We're such a large group that we can usually get something to happen. If you left your windows open or your sunroof open and your car is soaked, call me. We can extract it. You'd have to bring it and leave it. If it's standing in water, you usually have to pull the carpet up, because on the back side of the carpet in cars or trucks, especially cars, is what's called a jute pad, and it is designed to retain liquid so that it doesn't rust out your floor pans, and it does a real good job. I've seen people, well, in fact, I know a guy, Barry Rubin, in fact, in American Auto Salvage, this is back in the 80s, had bought some Cadillacs and sent them up downtown to the shop, and I quoted him a price, I think it was $300, because you have to take the seats out to get the carpet out. And he said, oh no, we'll just send it over there and y'all vacuum up and dry it up. I said, okay, but it's gonna, down the road when the heat starts in the summer, it's gonna start smelling. He said, well, we'll see about it then. And lo and behold, 5 or 6 months later, he drove one of them over and said, man, this thing smells like, crap. And I said, hold on, let me show you. And I pulled that piece of plastic that you normally put your foot on when you're getting into the car, or you barely miss it. And I pulled that carpet up. I said, put your hand under there. It was just like that rainstorm had happened the day before. So he said, all right, we'll send them back over and pull all the carpet out. So that's what happens when your car gets standing in water. Okay, Cleburne. We'll get you with this one. Okay, get me. Who was Major Darnell in Fort Worth? Well, you didn't get me. Major Darnell was our state representative, like Charlie Guerin is, back in the 1870s. So the Texas Pacific Railroad, let me see if I can change that. The Texas Pacific Railroad was building their railroad across Texas. They were about 6 miles short of Dallas, heading this way. The state legislature had promised land grants to different counties that was very lucrative. And Tarrant County, the powers that be wanted it. So the only drawback was that you had to have the railroad into your city or county by a certain date. Well, this was just prior to the Panic of 1873, so we're talking about 1872 time right now. So the funding company, the lending company, the bank that supported Texas Pacific Railroad was J. Cook and Company out of Chicago. They failed in the fall of 1872, no money. This was just starting the Panic of 1873, which was all over the world. It wasn't just a turn down in Texas or this area or the United States, is everywhere. The population here Prior to that, some historians put it at 4,000. I don't agree with that. I think it was about 3,000. Uh, and I've got research books that go down. Go back to that time frame. City directories, I've got them from the 1800s. So I think the population shrank from 3,000 or a little bit over to 500 or 600. A large portion of these people went to the city to the east. One of the guys that went over there was a lawyer here, and he became a lawyer over the city to the east. There's Jeff Petrie. Yes, we do. Yeah, Jeff, I'll send you. And in fact, I'll have the lady call you. Just hang loose. When I get off this, I'll make that happen. So the Fort Worth lawyer that became the city to the east lawyer, back in those days, everybody had a newspaper. It was a one-page deal. You set the type and then rode the roller over it. He said, "Hey, can you run an ad for me? I want to let people know I'm a lawyer." And the guy's interviewing him, and he said, "Where are you from?" He said, "I've been over in Fort Worth," but he said, "It's so dead over there. Last night or the night before I left to come here, a panther was asleep in the middle of the road, and nothing disturbed his sleep." This is when the roads are not paved or bricked, they're dirt. Thus, the nickname Panther was associated with Fort Worth. B.B. Paddock, who was the editor of the Democrat, didn't get offended by it. He celebrated it, and he called Fort Worth Pantherville, which Panther City, Panther Island, all of this stuff. Anyway, back to the construction. So K.M. Van Zandt, Thomas Jennings, Ephraim Daggett, and H.C. Hendricks formed a company called Tarrant County Construction Company. These were the richest guys in town. So they began construction in the fall of '75. The state legislature sent message to our representative, who was then the gentleman that you asked about, Major Darnell, said, "You have to come down here to Austin to complete the quorum so we can decide when the railroad has to be into Fort Worth." Monty's in, Barbara's in. Yep, storms. So anyway, he kept saying, "I'm sick." We sent word down there, "We're sick. There's something going around up in Fort Worth. Everybody's sick." When in reality, we're building like hell to get the track into Fort Worth. Finally, the Sergeant of Arms down at Austin was told, "You take a couple of people, and I don't care if you bring him back in a wagon on a cot, you bring him back down here so we can have this vote," which they did. And he kind of played the part, but he said, "Well, I'm better. I can ride in a buggy." So they go back down there. He gets the word back, "We got 48 hours. The track's got to be laid." So as they're laying the track and they're doing it correctly, the town shuts down. There's nobody doing nothing. Women are making sandwiches. Children are holding lanterns. All the men went about 40 hours without sleep. When they get to Sycamore Creek area, over in the Arlington area, they just laid track The last 2 miles of the track was not nailed down. There was no spikes. That little engine, wood-burning engine, just came in, and the citizens had long, like 2x4s, and as it would creep along, I mean creep, if one of the tracks got out of line, they would push it back in, and it rolled in 1876. And Dallas and other communities tried to stop this because they wanted that lucrative land grant. But our guys made it happen. So that's what happens when Fort Worthians are up against the wall and they make something happen. It's kind of like a lot of things that happened here. The fortitude of the citizens, and it still goes on today. You know, we face a hurdle, we make it happen. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, the bike giveaway, many times I thought would never make it this year. And last minute, Jack Williams or Charlie Hillard, or back in those days, I didn't have all of y'all. All I had was my detail customers and the car dealers. And I would literally go down 7th Street. I was next to the Firestone. Jack Williams was on the corner. Right across the street was Charlie Hillard. The McDavid brothers were up 7th Street. What's his name? Century Chevrolet. Bill McKay was there. And all the used car dealers. And I would beg those people, practically crying. And finally it caught on. Finally, guys like Jack Williams, I used to refer to him as Fat Jack, but I really have a lot of respect for all of those guys. I would go and see Mr. Williams and I'd say, last year we gave away 280 bikes. We need to give away a lot more. How many did King Charlie give you? And I'd tell him a story. 75? Well, I'll give you 100. Same thing with the McDavid brothers. Ernest Allen. Bill McKay gave us 120 bikes one year. Biggest donation we'd ever had. Of course, bikes back then were probably $45, $50. So now, this year, the 39th year, with the help of a lot of people, we formed a nonprofit, and with the help of all of y'all, all of our sponsors, all of our, Jeff Petrie's on here right now, lots of people. Last year, December 14th, we gave away 1,120 bikes, which put us at 19,550 bikes since it was started in the 80s. This year, we'll go over 20,000 bikes and over $1 million worth of bikes. So we Fort Worthians have always faced a challenge and stood up. So back to Cleburne's question is, my question for y'all was, why would you think that I didn't know who Major Darnell was? There's no monuments, no markers, no nothing in this city that praises him. He was the guy that came up and told Van Zant and all of them, he from Daggett, he said, hey guys, I'll just tell them, without me, they can't vote. I'll just tell them I'm sick, whatever, dying. And they kept that going over and day by day. And the people down there were pushing to get us knocked off of that land grant. Finally, the head of Congress down there said, Sergeant of Arms, you take a couple of people with you and you go up there in Tarrant County and you get Darnell and bring him back, alive or dead. We're going to have this vote. And we made it happen. So, I don't know how I got on that part of the story, but we stick together over here is what I'm trying to get at. Somebody, this morning, people started saying, hey, we need to put the weather app up. Has anybody got problems? Danny Westbrook was messaging people. People was telling people there's wrecks over here. I was reporting out in the Hazel area, 7:30, the power's all out, and we almost had a wreck with people hitting in front of us. So that's just what we do. I've been asked many times, why do you give away all these bicycles? It's what I do. It's the right thing to do. So anyway, that answers their question. Who was what? Jay Cook and Company was like a modern day hedge fund. They were the big lending company, and they backed Texas Pacific, and they went broke in 72, and so that didn't deter our guys. There's 4 of them, and then a total of 32 signed a letter of intent that they would personally come up with the money to fund the railroad construction. It was called Tarrant County Construction Company. Thank you. Well, I have an advantage over a lot of historians. I don't have to keep reading it or whatever to remember it, because I can recall it. If I've seen it once, I can recall it from about age 8 to the minute. I can tell you when my dad had this little short 2x4 and go after me to the day. We kind of had a love-hate relationship. So that which started my life in the wrong way, because I never had a childhood. I was on the streets when I was 10 or 11 years old. But I made it through, and so for the last almost 40 years, I've done nothing but try to help somebody. And we've amassed a lot of stuff that's one-of-a-kind stuff. History. The Trainmaster Control that operated the M&O subway, the Tandy subway, it's right here. It's not in any other museum. This is the only museum in Fort Worth that is strictly about Fort Worth or Tarrant County. There's nothing in here from the city to the east. Nothing. That's why I always am amazed that we get no donations. At some point, somebody's going to have to step up, because if I was to pass today, my kids would piecemeal it. They would sell it on a large Christie's auction. And all of this stuff needs to be in a place where people can enjoy it. So anyway, if you've got a business, I can promote it. It's $1,500 a year. That directly helps the museum. I post your stuff every day. I talk it up. Just like Jeff Petrie's looking for a roofer, I'm fixing to call K Ranch Roofing and talk to Bree and give her Jeff's number and have her call him, and they'll be fixed up. Was my dad a historian? My dad was dealt in lead. No, he wasn't a historian. He didn't live long enough to be a historian. On that side of the family, I'm the first male figure lived to be past 40-something. Okay. Well, that's because we don't teach Fort Worth history or Tarrant County history. Ever since I've been doing this, I've talked to Mayors Price, Parker, Moncrief. We raise our kids here. We send them to little school, middle school, high school. They go off to college and they just don't ever come back. They don't have a clue about our rich history. Every community has history, but I guarantee you, I cannot think of a single one that has the history we have. The outlaw days, the most important photo ever made in the outlaw days was the Fort Worth Five. That's the Wild Bunch. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Kid Curry, Will Carver, But we've overcome when the Depression hit. We overcame that. When we had the runs on the banks in 1930, we overcame that. We were fortunate that we had so many great civic leaders, and everybody always wants to remember Amon, who was huge. In 1950, and I don't know how they came up with this, people that supposedly knew said if you were an adult and you worked at a business in Fort Worth, Texas, you were working for a company that Amon Carter brought to town. But there was so many in front of him. Ephraim Daggett. Ephraim Daggett, Santa Anna surrendered to him and signed Texas over. Daggett Avenue. Ephraim Daggett owned all of Hell's Half Acre. K.M. Van Zandt, the godfather of our banking industry. John Peter Smith, who was not a doctor, he was a lawyer. Started the first school here. Well, how did he get here? He was over at the city to the east. He walked. When he got to about Euless Way, a farmer was out there and he said, "Sir, you want to come in the house here? You look like you're pretty well worn out." And he agreed, and they talked him into having dinner there and getting some rest, and then the farmer would ride him into town the next day in a buggy. Yeah, well, they don't anymore. And we've got great people that teach Fort Worth history in colleges, but it should be on a regular basis. All these kids should know that. Every year I go to the Chicken and Bread Festival in Bowie, where Amon was as a young man, but then came to Fort Worth. When he came, he brought a Monning and he brought a stripling with him. All three of those individuals had a huge impact on Fort Worth. And when I go out there and speak, the lake there is called Lake Amon Carter. They all think that Amon still lives there. So, and I'm not knocking anybody, it's just that we've got such a great history. I wish I could teach it. I've got the largest classroom in Tarrant County because people watch these videos over and over and over. So anyway, we're after 8. I will post the K Ranch Roofing, and Jeff, I'm going to call Bree. Her name is Bree. If I can find my pen. I know I had one. I'd lose my head if it wasn't tied on, I promise you. Hold on. There it is, hiding from me. Okay, so I'll come back on and we'll do all the sponsors. Yeah, Amon Carter's. Yes, I know that. Y'all ought to go. That festival is in October every year, the first week, and Bowie is a little country town. The people there are great. I speak there every year. And it's a privilege to speak about Mr. Amon Giles Carter Sr. He was one of a kind. Never held a public office, but he ran this city for 30 years with an iron fist, and I promise you, I can't think of a decision that he made that wasn't good for Fort Worth. People say, "Do you have a good old boy system?" Yeah, and the players were all presidents, or heads of state, or heads of companies. We've got the bomber plant. That was strictly Amon Carter getting it here. The narcotic farm, they had 2 of them here in Kansas City in '38. Strictly Amon. The Sinclair building, Amon Carter cold called on the Sinclairs in New York, unannounced, walked in and said, "I'd like to speak to the Sinclairs, are they in?" And the lady said, "Yes, sir, but do you have an appointment?" "No, you just tell them Amon Carter, Fort Worth." And before he left, he had them promised to build the building that's downtown. Unbelievable. I always tell people there's never a story. People ask me, because I'm pretty well versed on Amon Carter and the Carter family. Is it possible Amon did this? You cannot ask me a question that it's not possible, unless you say, was Amon an astronaut that went on the moon? Besides that, anything else, it's very possible. He wouldn't take no for an answer. Everybody says he was a great guy. Really, he was so busy doing stuff. He was kind of a jerk a lot of the times. If Amon asked you to do something and you didn't want to go along with it, you better get out of his way, because he's going to steamroll right over you, no matter who you are. The only time Amon took on a project that it didn't succeed was he was the campaign manager for Garner, Nance Garner, to be the president in the 30s against FDR. He didn't win, his candidate didn't win, but he became vice president. That's the only time he never completely succeeded. Everything else he did. Okay, I'll be back and I'll do all of the sponsors here in a minute. Don't forget, we've always got people on here. If you're lonely, if you got some kind of issue, we've got 130